You are listening to the new man beyond the macho jerk and the new age wimp. Your host is men's coach Tripp Lanier.
Are you using your career and family as an excuse to play it safe? When you get scared, do you freeze or focus? And when was the last time you felt lit up by that fire inside? Big wave badass and family man Laird Hamilton is here to discuss fear, fatherhood, and why fun may be more important than diet and exercise. Welcome to The New Man. Today we're talking to a man that doesn't need any introduction. Laird Hamilton, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
So give us an idea of where you are and the kind of view that you have this morning. Where exactly are you?
I am on the Garden Island of Kauai in a place called Honolulu. And right now I'm looking outside at a pretty wet morning. We got some big rain, but no surprise because it's the wettest spot on earth. And but there's with the rain comes the vegetation, and the river's looking pretty swollen. So I might get out there and paddle in place or something like that just to get some exercise.
One night I got stuck on the bridge. They closed the bridge after I crossed over. I couldn't get back up into Kilauea, so I got stuck there in that town. I know what can happen when the rains come down. So it happens pretty quick with that river.
Well, we used to pray for that, when we were kids, hoping it would flood because no school then.
It's kind of like snow day for other kids, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we love that.
Excellent. And so, most people know you they know you for your surfing and surviving these huge, deadly waves. But today I wanted to talk about what makes you tick. So the guy on the treadmill in Chicago or the guy stuck in traffic in Tulsa can benefit from how you handle fear or any kind of illusion of control and what motivates you, passion, family, all that good stuff. So you on board for that?
I'm ready to roll.
Okay, cool. So I imagine some folks look at the videos of you surfing waves and they may think you're reckless or that you're a daredevil. I see a lot of discipline and preparation, but either way, you're still dealing with fear. So I'm just curious, what's your approach to working with fear and limiting beliefs? You still have fears, right? You're not superhuman and you don't have them, right?
Well, I think to not have fear would kind of be like to not have pain. Where you need it's an elementary part of survival. Fear is an important aspect of good assessment of like assessing risk and to be scared of something that's greater than you or a situation that's dangerous is I consider that intelligence.
How so? What do you mean by intelligence?
Well, because if you're scared, it means that you've assessed something. You have awareness of what it means. You mean, okay, hey, that tree or that wave or that mountain or that situation in traffic where somebody's going fast and they're coming at you. You assess that and go, okay, well, if that guy keeps coming at me going that fast, and hits me, I'm gonna get hurt or die. So I need to make a decision here. And I think it's how you use your fear really is what separates people, and I think that it's really about using fear as a way to become stronger and smarter. I always say that I might be the most scared guy out there, and that makes me I hope to this. I hope it makes me make good decisions, but up to this point, it's definitely helped me over the years about getting out of situations and assessing things properly. And so, fear is an essential part of living.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely. To me, I think we feel more alive when we've got something at risk. When there's a little bit of that fear, we get aroused. Otherwise, we're just kind of in that bubble.
Well, I think that we would not have, the humans would not have survived on Earth had they not been scared. Like if you weren't scared and you didn't know, hey, that thing can eat me, I better run, we would have perished. So I think that it's an important part of it's one of the essential emotions of living, and what you do with it and how you cultivate it. That's a whole nother set of circumstances. And I think I'm more of a person that chooses to confront my fears. If I have a situation I'm scared of, I prefer confronting it and really having a better understanding. We always say fear is of the unknown, and I think when you don't understand something, you're definitely more scared of it, and then you see people get scared and freeze. Well, that's not the kind of fear you want. That's a dangerous fear, a fear that makes you make good decisions quickly and get out of the way, or tie the knot, or do whatever you need to do to survive. That's good fear. So there is good fear and there is bad fear, and then it's a matter of the cultivation of that emotion and you being comfortable in that place.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that, because when I've seen you on huge waves like out at Piahi, and there's guys that when they're on the wave, they're racing for the shoulder. They're just trying to survive. And then I've seen you actually ripping, like going up and down the face. You're playing in that element where one guy's trying to survive. You're actually more at ease and playing in that place. So I'm just wondering, like, how do we build up that ability to let go of control, or just be able to play when we don't have a sense of control, or there's that uncertainty, there's that fear there?
Well, I think a lot of that has to do simply with the time, the amount of time that you do something, and then the amount of room. If it appears that I'm playing, it's because I feel like I have time and I'm able to do the things I'm able to do because there is that time. And the other guy that looks like he's running for his life to the shoulder, really, he doesn't feel the comfort that he has the time. He feels like he doesn't have enough time, and he's just trying to get out of the situation, where I feel like I'm still out of the situation and that I have time. And I always describe it a lot like, speed. When you drive fast in a car, the first time you go 80 miles an hour, you're tunnel vision. You don't see anything except just straight ahead. And the thousandth time, or the 10,000th time that you go 80 miles an hour, you have peripheral. You look around, you can see, oh yeah, I saw that horse in the field over there when I went by, and and I think that comes. A lot of that comes from experience. There's certain people that will never ever have that comfort. Just they're not capable of feeling comfortable in those situations. But I think that most people, through experience, their peripheral will open up and they will have more time. You always have more time, and that's one thing that you learn. You always have more time than you think you do. And what's interesting is that when you speed up, when you rush into a situation, it gives you less time. When you slow down, you have more time. And so I think that's one thing that if you look at a lot of people that are good in high risk situations, they have a tendency to slow everything down. Everything's slowed down, which means really that your assessment is sped up. I always describe it like slow motion photography. Is really shooting at a higher frame rate. So you shoot faster film so you can really slow things down. Well, when you assess quickly, you're able to slow things down. If you have quick assessment and you're really assessing everything, then that gives you time, and then through that slowing it down, then you can make good decisions and or have time to play in the situation where normally you'd feel like you'd just be running for your life.
I love it. On one hand, there's these baby steps. I mean, you've been in the water since you were, an infant, and, you've built up to this place. You didn't just arrive here. So you've been through baby steps building up this experience. And then on the other hand is like, what's the attitude? I'm kind of getting this, like, what's the attitude we bring to this? Is it this frantic, fearful place where it's like, oh my God, I got it, like it's kind of gritting and white knuckling? Or is it ease and let's slow down, let's assess, let's see what's going on here and see where the opportunity is? Is that kind of what you're saying?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We're not speeding up our and rushing in and making kind of sporadic, irrational decisions. We're slowing the whole situation down and kind of having a comfort there. But again, that comes from being there. That comes from being in those situations. People always ask me, "Oh, tell me your scariest wipeout or your most scary thing." And I go, I used to get rescued, daily when I was a kid. Like, I got washed out to sea more times than I can count. And I probably got washed out to sea more times than people have been to the beach. And, over time, and especially when you have those traumatic situations when you're young, I mean, how when you're little, how scary a movie is, or, a traumatic situation when you're young, because of your lack of experience, seems to be much greater. And so I think the impact that had on me as a young man kind of went over into, as you got older, you kind of go, well, I've already been more scared than I can be, really. Like, almost now I'm almost not capable, which, you never want to be complacent. And that's another aspect of kind of risk management or doing things that have high risk, is that you never want to get that complacency where you drop your guard, and it happens when the surf's small or when you're not going as fast as you normally do, or the cliff isn't as high as it normally is, or, and you kind of drop your guard and you kind of go, oh, this is nothing. And that's when you get whacked. And so you need to, you always need to kind of have respect for, gravity and things like that have a greater power than you. And I think that's a big part of it too, is just to always retain that kind of humility and never get too proud and never think and always kind of be a little scared, a little, and always, and like I said, fear and reverence kind of go together. You're scared of your dad, but you revere him. So you respect your father. He's bigger than you. He disciplines you. But you're scared of him too. So and part of that is that's healthy. I think that's a healthy way to go about it. And you always want to retain a certain amount of reverence and fear, no matter what, and avoid complacency, because that'll get you every time.
I like it. I love that there's a sweet spot in between boredom and like terror, right? There's that place in there where we've got that, where we just kind of ride that edge right in there.
Exactly.
Many guys are not taking risks because falling or failing in their world is not an option, but you fall all the time out in the water. I'm just wondering if you've got any parallels between how you fall in the water and I mean, just get punished out there. And do you take that into your daily life? And is falling in your daily life an option for you?
I think that your willingness to be a failure, I think, and subject yourself to failing, I think that's again, another really healthy thing to do, because, whenever you learn something new, you're always going to be bad. And so at the end of the day, if you're not willing to kind of have some failure, now there's situations where, when it gets real big or when you're falling from the sky real high, or when you're doing certain things where you're not allowed, like we'll say, hey, today there's no falling today. There's no option. You don't have the option to fall today. And if you think you're gonna, then you don't get to ride, kind of deal. And so there is that line too. And where is that line? And even on those days, there's a chance that you might make a mistake. But you have to have that ability to kind of draw that line of, hey, I'm going to go into the conservative side and just keep the thing, keep my feet on the board and keep me on the board and make it, because today's not a day that I can make mistakes, where another day you might want to push the edge. And part of falling is knowing where that line is. Where's that line between control and out of control? And the willingness to failure, to fail. I think I spent a lot of my life kind of crashing and failing and making mistakes, and then after a while you start to learn, and then pretty soon, hey, you're getting better, and then before you know it, wow, I can do this, and then pretty soon you're at a high level. But it was only because you subjected yourself to sometimes just the pure humiliation of failure. I think people avoid failure to the point where they kind of avoid some of the greatest accomplishments that they could have. And, it's easy to just stay within your comfort zone of being an expert at something and only doing what you're good at and all of that. But your willingness to go out and subject yourself to new things, I think that's led me down a lot more interesting roads than had I just stayed within my comfort zone and in my safe. And my comfort zone could be just riding giant waves, but with all the time and effort I have at doing that, that would be my comfort zone. And unless I subject myself to crashing and failing in some other areas, I wouldn't have been able to do, foiling and stand-up paddling and snowboarding and just all these other things that I've gotten to do that have brought me, kind of incredible feelings of accomplishment.
When we talk about that, I don't think people really understand the mechanics of how somebody like you earns a living. Or, it's like there's not somebody's not waiting in the channel to write you a check after you get off the board right there. And I don't think folks really appreciate how challenging it is for a guy like you to come from this island out in the middle of nowhere and earn a living as a surfer without being a competitive surfer. So. It seems like you just, I know that it's just the impression, but you're making a livelihood out of being yourself, being Laird Hamilton. But I'm wondering if you ever came close to going down this other path of playing it safe and I don't know, what would the safe, predictable path have been for Laird? Like, you're some desk jockey somewhere. Like, what was that going to be? Did you ever consider going down that road?
Well, I've built houses and done. The weird thing about I think my personality is I gravitate towards big chainsaws and big heavy equipment and just kind of towards more kind of I want to say aggressive type situations, but. A safer way. Obviously, would have been to do something that was a lot more structured. Of course, my mother would have loved it if I went to college and got a degree, and my uncle was an accountant, and my mom was an accountant and a very intelligent woman, and her thing was all about education, and at the same time, she also kind of made us have, me and my brother kind of cultivate our imaginations and read Lord of the Rings and Jonathan Livingston Seagull and all these incredible books that kind of made us have, and we didn't have TV at the end of the road where we lived. We had one channel, and when it rained on our roof, it was so loud you couldn't hear it. So internet, what? TV, who? We
Right.
didn't have that stuff, so we kind of had to be a little more creative, and I think that a big part of my success, but my continual effort to be successful is to have faith and to believe, and that's a big part of it, to believe that you can do something, that you can be you and make a living. Somebody said to me the other day, you just have to be you because everybody else is taken. So,
right.
And I have to appreciate that each of us are unique and individual, and that's an amazing thing that there's billions of humans on Earth, and every single one of them is different. Even when people are twins, they're different, and it's a pretty amazing phenomenon.
So what drives you? Because we don't, if we're watching you, we can only imagine what it's like to be on a huge wave like that, or to be riding a foil board or something like that. So we look at you and we're like, wow, we see the danger. Like, what is this guy nuts? Like, are you nuts? I don't get that you're nuts, but what's driving you? What do you think is the big core of that?
Well, I think it's an easy disclaimer to see somebody doing something dangerous and go, oh, that's crazy, because that kind of lets you off the hook from doing it, like if you're a person thinking about it. But I think it's in every one of us. I think every single, and I want to say, more in men than women, but it's in us. It's inside of us. We have this desire, males do especially, some females, but in general it's a male trait, that we have this kind of desire to go out and achieve, and conquer, or should I always like to say survive, but to survive, these things for a feeling of accomplishment, but the thing that, that drives me, I feel like I was born with this kind of fire inside of me that never got extinguished. I think all of us are born with a fire in us. Our heart starts beating, and once that thing starts, it just doesn't stop until it's over. And that's like your fire inside of you. And I think that, mine never got extinguished. I was in an environment that I was able to cultivate it. And I think had I been raised in a more populated area, I might have been incarcerated. I don't know, but I wasn't. I was in the jungle, and I could kind of cultivate that part of me, and there's an inner thing inside of you that drives you every morning to wake up at 4 in the morning and run the beach and look at the ocean, and if the surf's giant, be drawn to go and ride it, and if you're near a cliff, you want to jump these cliffs, you want to get in these vehicles that go fast, you want to fly, you want to fall, you want to, there's this thing that's just inside of you burning, and a lot of us have it. I think all of us have it. It's just a matter of, how if it's been nurtured or if it's been extinguished. That kind of dictates the outcome and your surroundings and all that. I think I've been fortunate that I had the right kind of mentality and then I had the right situation. It's like it's like the perfect storm. When all the pieces come together, you got the physicality, you got the mental thing, you're in the right environment. I mean, you get all those pieces put together, and then the opportunity comes. But it's something that is it's a curse as well, because it's something that that it's like Gabby always says, my wife, she's like, what you don't want is like a flat, calm environment, like flat land with no waves and no wind, and that's what kills me. You know what I mean? Like that's what drives me out of my mind. Is just when everything's too calm.
Got to stir it up.
I want it to be chaos. I'm totally calm in chaos, but calmness puts me in chaos.
It's funny, because some guys, and I'll just throw myself out there. There's a shadow side to this creative part of ourselves. There's this, we can have that flame, we can have that thing, and we got to nurture it. We got to protect it, because society's going to want to blow it out because we don't fit in if we honor that flame. But there's also this part of us, for some of us, and like I said, I've got a part of this too. It's just like there's a part of me. It's kind of this thing on my shoulder. It's like you're not good enough. You're not good enough. You got to be doing more. Has that ever played a role in what you do?
Oh, that's a good ongoing battle. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it's innate in humans to be perfectionist. I think that there's somewhere. I mean, that's what drives you. I think that I always, because I'm a terrible loser, and so I always say, if you show me a good loser, I'll show you a loser. Like, I you know what I mean? Like you're never content. You always could do it a little better, and I think. I think that's a driving force that drives you to a higher level of performance or a higher level of success by, but there is that other side, which is that you do have to feel like you've been accomplished too, that it can't always just be, that you could have done it better and it's not good enough. And because if you go that way, then you're bound for misery. At a certain point, you have to be some sort of contentment. And what's interesting in the growth of a man or in an athlete or just in a professional general is that you have this one side where when you're young and risk taking and nothing's perfect and all that, and you kind of come from an anger position to cultivate your skills and your talent, and then when you become successful, then you have to almost change it and come from more of a complacency or more of a contentment. I mean, and so you come from a contentment after coming from anger. That's a tricky transition.
Yeah.
To be more content, but still have the driving desire and the will to achieve from being content than from being angry and trying to prove something.
I'm just, if you got to sit down with yourself, you're 47, 48 right now?
Yeah.
What if you could sit down with 20-year-old Laird? I mean, could you even get through to him at that time? What would you want to tell him at that time?
20-year-old Laird. I mean, I would. I don't know. There's not much I could tell 20-year-old Laird. I don't think he was. I don't think. Well, not that he wouldn't listen, but I'm happy with what 20-year-old Laird did, because he brought me to 48, 49-year-old Laird. So at that point, he didn't mess it up that bad, because I'm here. So at the end of the day, it's like, if I look back at my life, I wouldn't want to change anything, that I've done, because there's a possibility it could change where I am, and I'm happy where I am right now. I think the only thing that I would have probably told 20-year-old Laird is maybe just have a few less glasses of wine or something.
Got it. Well, let's talk about family a little bit. You mentioned your wife, Gabby, there. A lot of guys, they've used their family as an excuse to not go after what they want. Like, if they're not cultivating that fire, like we were saying, because they're saying, well, I got my family, but you kind of blow that excuse out of the water. I mean, it's just like, but I'm curious how, being a family man, you've got 3 daughters, you got a wife. How does it affect your surfing and your decisions out in the water?
I think it affects my decisions on land more than it does in the water. Obviously, I think that and I've said this, and I keep thinking I'm going to eat my words, but it hasn't happened yet. But I really want my children to know me for who I am, and I think that that's an important part of being who I am. Like, I want them to know Laird, the waterman, the big, the guy that comes in from riding giant waves and has that look on his face and that look in his eye, and let them feel what it does for me, so maybe they can find their special purpose, their thing that brings them that feeling, that feeling of accomplishment and that feeling. And, I always, we talk about it like, they didn't ask me to bring them into the world. I brought them into the world. So why would I put the burden of them, like, oh, well, I used to ride surf, but then I had you guys and then I stopped. It's like, that's not fair to them. I would never do that to them. They didn't, they didn't ask. And I really want them to know me for who I am, and so I think that's an important part of being, a father, a husband, a friend. I mean, I think you need to continue to be who you are, and if you're looking for a way out, I just think a lot of people are looking for excuses to stop. A lot of people are looking for excuses to not continue on, instead of just going, hey, I don't want to. I mean, I feel like when I don't want to, I'm going to say I don't want to, because I'm maybe exhausted of the emotional roller coaster it takes to prepare myself to go throw myself in front of a moving train, and so, but that'll be my decision because of what my needs are, not because of a situation that my family put me in. And so I think that's an important part of, having the proper perspective about, what, who your family is to you and what you want to be to them. I really want, I want them to know me for me, who I am, all of who I am, not just, not just a piece of who I am, or the guy that tells them, hey, don't do this, don't do that. But I want them to also know I'm the guy that, takes them out in the jet boat and, puts the metal down too. So I want them to have, they say that as a father, you're, a big part of what you're supposed to teach your children is to be adventurous and courageous. And so I go, well, if you want to be a father and be adventurous and courageous, then you need to keep being adventurous and courageous.
Well, I love what you said, because also they get to, I'm imagining like if we got caged Laird. Right, and just what a dick you would be. Like, I can imagine.
Oh yeah,
like,
well, you don't want to know, Kate. You don't want to know, Kate Laird. And the problem is at the end of the day, it's like I have friends of mine that retired from playing football, and some other guys that stopped doing what they do, and then they have to look through other avenues, and usually they're pretty destructive avenues to get that feeling that and get that it takes a real man and some real effort to be able to kind of find those areas where that that it to bring that feeling, that feeling of accomplishment and those feelings that we need to sleep well at night and to be civil humans. And there really is no retirement. There is no quitting. It's just a new situation and a new outlet. And so it really never ends. And so you just got to decide, what kind of person what person you're going to be. And I think it's all up to all of us individually to make ourselves happy, and that it's not the behaviors of other people, it's not the behaviors of our partners or of our children that's going to make us happy. It's going to be what we need to do for ourselves to make ourselves happy, and then we can come back and we can be part of a happy situation. But we have to bring happiness into the situation. We can't expect the situation to make us happy.
That is so huge. I mean, so many of us are waiting for permission to go do what we love. We're waiting for permission to go pursue this or that. And we're kind of hoping, we're negotiating, well, if I do this, then maybe down the road, this will come out. And you're saying, go for it. You got to be the one that goes for it. And especially if we've got kids, they don't need information. They need demonstration. They need us to show them how to go and pursue the things that you love and not let the world cut you off from it. You've got to be the one to go out there, and then they're going to follow suit. Hey, Dad did this.
Yeah, well, it's all about leading by example. And the thing is, if people are in situations with partners that don't understand, then you kind of almost have to educate and let it's like Gabby knows. Hey, if I go out and surf and run the beach and fall from a big cliff and do all my whole thing, I come back, I'm like somebody that they want to be around. They want to see me. But if you tell me take a couple days off and don't do anything and just be right by my side, you're going to be like, before the day's up, you're going to be like, please go away.
Well, let's talk about your wife for a second, because was there ever a time where she would see you looking at a satellite photo, like charting a storm and a swell model and kind of get nervous and maybe think about intervening? I mean, how critical is her support to what you do?
Oh, well, it's essential. I mean, to have the support of the person that you're with. I mean, it's your partner. Their support it really kind of brings you a certain amount of comfort. If you're being distracted by if they're distracting you from what you're doing, you definitely can't do it to the full potential. And so, the great thing about Gabby is that she knew. I always say you knew the job was dangerous when you took it, because she understands what I do. She met me. I was doing what I do. She has a lot of faith in my ability to do it. We talk. It's like we have a saying: there's old pilots and bold pilots. No old bold pilots. It's like it may look like it's reckless and foolhardy from the outside, just from looking at the image. But when you see the preparation, when you live with the preparation, when you live with the methodicism of it, when you see how methodical we are about the process and what we do and how we do it, you begin to know that this is a lot more scientific than people think, and the amount of time and effort that we put into it. She's got a lot of faith in me, and she gives me full support. And I mean, she may have a woman's intuition and say, hey, today I just kind of have a feeling about something. And usually when she does, something breaks or I get hit or something happens. I mean, there's usually legitimacy to that, and so we heed those intuitions. But at the same time, we get full support, and I think it would be hard to be in a situation that I wasn't getting full support. I think it's just not a healthy environment. I know in the past I've been in situations where you're not getting full support, and it just it ends up being counterproductive, and just it doesn't it's not good for anybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I get this image of a tiny flame, and it's like we got to protect it. The world's going to try and snuff it out. We got to feed it, give it a little bit of air, and the people around us are going to either be a contributor or they're going to take away from that.
Well, that's right. Okay.
Well, I got to ask you, you talked about chaos a little while ago. What's more humbling, raising daughters or getting thumped out in the water?
Oh gosh, I'll take the water's easy. The water's easy. I mean, in comparison, because these little girls are 24/7, man, and they are like relentless. They are just endlessly Their energy, and they're just relentless, and the mental jujitsu is unbelievable. They're and I mean, I didn't know a 4-year-old could consume that much information and then subject it on you.
Oh man, I've got a 2-year-old daughter, so I'm right behind you. I'm watching you.
Well, get ready. Hold on.
Well, let's talk about meaning a little bit. We get older, and we start to want the things. We want to have an impact in the world, and surfing by itself is really selfish. So I'm just curious, as you've gotten old, how have you brought more meaning into what you do?
Well, I mean, I've been involved. Obviously, I'm involved in this new stand-up paddling craze. I mean, other than just, of course, being involved with charities and doing stuff for, cystic fibrosis and autism and just all these other charities and wherever you can help people, and then again, like I said, stand-up paddling is really a discipline within surfing that really is something that everybody can do and experience. And I think that's part of one of the blessings that I have, is that I've been able to kind of kindle that aspect, that spirit of surfing, which is a lot more sharing and a lot more. It's a discipline that all types of people can do in all types of situation. And, conventional prone surfing is a very difficult sport, and you got to be somewhat like a gymnast. And, I think surfing is one of the few sports that has so little participants, but yet it's such a big industry, considering how few people can actually do the sport itself. And so, stand-up paddling, the way it allows all these different types of people to experience the sensation of what we call papahe'i nalu in Hawaii, which means wave gliding or wave sliding. It's like a wave sliding experience where you're standing up, sliding along the water, and I see the happiness and the joy that it's bringing people. And I think that's like a payback for me. I see that bringing joy to old time surfers. I think it bringing happiness to all kinds of people that would never ever even go in the water now are in the water, and I think that's, in a way, I get to kind of vicariously experience the joy that I know that surfing's brought me in my life. I think it's brought me so much happiness and fear and tears and all these emotions, but I can live vicariously through people, helping people learn how and experience, riding a wave for the first time. I live through that a little bit. I always wonder what that, feels like. It's been so long since I rode my first wave.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate the stand-up thing, because actually the first time I rode a stand-up was actually out there in Honolulu, and I was one of those prone surfers that was poo-pooing it. I was like, we don't need any more of this crap, and then I got on it, and 10 minutes later I'm like hooked, and I just loved it. And it is a big deal, and it is a big life changer. My wife can go do it. I can take my daughter out on it, and it's just. Imagine I want to be able to translate. Look, this is why I spend so much time on the water. I want you to get an experience of this, and this just lowers that bar so people can get out there and have that experience and care more about where we live too. It's like we had a whole different relationship with it now.
Exactly, and that and at the end of the day, it also heightens the bar, because like what we're doing in the big surf with that and some small wave tricks, and I feel like I've never evolved more in my surfing than since I started doing stand up. So in a way, it's like a huge spectrum. And when you go to the Battle of the Paddle, which is like one of these stand up paddle races, and you have 2,000 people participating. I mean, it has kind of epic proportions. It's like triathlon meets surfing, and you see the people, and I think at the end of the day, I think that it is everybody's right to experience, getting to that sensation, getting that experience of being on the water. And I think if more people were out there, using the ocean and experiencing and being on the rivers and the lakes, then more people would be, fighting for the clarity of the water and keeping the ocean protected. And so in a way, it's kind of like, we wish that no one was out there, but we were those people too. And so and I feel like it's everybody's right to kind of have the opportunity to enjoy a good ride. Now, if you're, we always say kooks are kooks. It doesn't matter what they're riding. So yeah, there's dangerous people out there, and we always have to kind of give them a little sounding and say, hey, you got to learn what you're doing before you come running through the lineup and run the kids over.
Right.
But it is people's kind of right to have fun. At the end of the day, it's really about fun, and then which ends up spilling into your health. They said if you could only do one thing, and it was eat right or sleep or work out, what would be the single greatest thing you could do for your health? And it's have fun. And so at the end of the day, make time to do things that you enjoy. Is probably the single greatest health benefit. Now, after that, eating, working out, sleeping, those are all other things that, lead to being able to do things like my friend, Mr. Wildman, at 80 when he's up snowboarding and then he's, biking and stand-up paddling. It's like you can do this for the rest of your life.
I don't think a lot of people connect those dots between eating and diet. Like there's just this thing of kind of like, oh, I'm maintaining the engine, but they don't get that if the body's gone to hell, then everything you want in your life is gone to hell. I mean, you get injured a lot. I mean, how do you navigate that terrain with injuries? And I know that the diet helps, but just kind of walk us through that.
Well, I mean, the injuries a lot of times are an emotional roller coaster of, okay, I'm broken. Can I, will I get better? How long will it take me to get better? And, am I going to be able to do what I do? And will I be the same and all that stuff? And so there's an emotional aspect of being hurt that you have to deal with. And, as many times that I've been hurt, you start to kind of perfect the art of being hurt. It's not something that I want to be good at, but I am good at being hurt. And it's because I've been through the process of it where you start to get, you're really vigilant about, okay, I'm hurt now I'm going to, you got to continue to work out. You got to continue to eat well. You got to continue to move. The more you move, the faster you heal. The more you can endure the pain while you're hurt and push on, the quicker you'll be better. And it just seems counterintuitive. You want to not do anything, and again, injuries are a real emotional kind of roller coaster where you're doubting if you're going to be the same and will I be able to do it, and then but once you've been through that process enough times, you start to realize, yeah, you will be the same, and you end up learning a lot more about yourself when you're hurt. I always say failures will teach you much more than successes. I mean, anytime a team or something loses, they always just reassess everything and fire everybody, and they could have done the same exact thing and won, just had other people do something different, and they wouldn't change a thing. So it's always interesting to watch, how people react during that. And injury is a form of failure. And so, I mean, things have failed. Either the bones failed or the skin failed or you made a mistake and you got whacked. And so, injuries for me are educational, and you learn about supplements, you learn about you learn about your fitness, you learn about, how far you can push it, you learn about yourself. When you're hurt, you have a lot of time depending on the injury, so a lot of time to think. And so I think I would attribute a lot of my injuries towards my success. I think that without all those injuries that I've had, I wouldn't have the success that I've had, and the continual knowledge of myself, of my body, how it works. I wouldn't be so conscious of my training and so aware of my diet had I not been, hurt as many times as I have.
And I'm wondering, like, was there one pivotal injury that started, or were you kind of just gradually going on this path?
Well, I've been whacked a lot. I had 1,000 stitches with no operations by the time I was 20. I mean, so I've been, I had a broken ankle though when I was probably, I want to say 16. A guy ran me over with a huge surfboard and compounded my ankle, drove the bone out the side of my leg, and that was the first time that I had an injury that really stopped me. Like I kind of stopped me. I would just say slowed me down. But it was, monumental enough that, you got the big cast and you can't go in the water, and I sawed the cast off and rebroke it and then had to get a thing. And so it's, you, in a way, I think that was that first broken leg that was the kind of the first, that one broken leg might have saved me a real big injury, maybe, in the sense of, and I noticed with my children when I was raising my kids, you see them on the stairs or they're walking around and you see them and you go, and they're going to fall, and you're kind of like, oh man, I want to go catch them, but I know if I go there and stop them from falling off that first little step, that they're not going to understand what those stairs mean, and they're going to get in the top, and I'm not going to be there, and they're going to go ka-tunk, ka-tunk, ka-tunk all the way down. And so you kind of have to let the kids fall off the first step to understand, oh, those are stairs. You don't want to fall on those. And then they don't fall from the top because they know it hurt from the first one. And I think that was, for me, I think that was part of, I think that injury probably, helped save me in a way, because it probably kept me from an injury that may have totally, might have totally prevented me from, doing a lot of the things that I've been able to do.
It woke you up to that. Okay, I'm human. Yeah. Pay attention, Laird.
Yeah, you're not, I mean, as invincible as you think you are, and then it's what you do after that too. It's like, what's interesting is, you see a lot of fighters and stuff and athletes that never lose, and they go so long without ever losing that when they lose, totally in shock. They're almost like devastated, and a lot of times they don't recover from that because they never had it early along enough to kind of just bounce out of it and realize, oh, that's part of it, blow that stuff off. And so they don't know how to blow it off. It gets into their psyche, and then after that, it's like sometimes they never recover from that. And I mean, the thing about the fight, the fight game is that it's such a, that game is such a kind of egocentric. You got to really have confidence in yourself and think that you're the baddest in the world, and you're invincible. But at the same time, that vulnerability of, even a blind squirrel can find an acorn. Somebody can get lucky and knock you out on a day. It doesn't mean that they're better than you. It just means they got a shot on you, and you having the right perspective. And you can see how it can just derail. Somebody can get derailed pretty quickly if they haven't kind of had that experience and know how to get through that. And like I said, injury or loss. I mean, these are forms of failure.
Absolutely. Let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk about spirituality, because I'm just wondering, you were always in the water. You've obviously lived near the water. The water is a huge part of your life. It's a huge part of your spiritual life. Was there ever a moment where you woke up to that reality and you're like, wait a second, this isn't just where I play and I have fun. This is something much larger than me. Did you have some kind of a moment there, or is it just always been that way?
I've had a couple. I've been lost at sea. I was rescued in the, rescued kind of wondering if it was going to be the end. I've had some scary, thought I was going to die situations, but it seemed like I don't think it was any one grain of sand. I think it's the whole mountain. Mm-hmm. I think at the end of the day, I think it's been, you start to realize that this relationship that you have with the ocean, and all of a sudden you go for some time, and you go for a period of time when you're not in it, and then you get in it and you're like, oh my goodness, I need this. This is something that's part of me. It really brings me a certain kind of understanding of why I'm here and who I am, and it makes me feel connected. And once you start to realize that, then you don't make the mistake of not being in it and not being near it. But I don't know if it was any one particular one. I mean, even though there's been a lot of them, and there've been some pretty heavy ones, and each one at the time I think was in itself monumental enough to have that effect. But I think it was really just the accumulation of all of that, and then the realization over time how you need it. It's like, there's spiritual, emotional aspects of it. First of all, it's, pH balance. You just get in that ocean and swim around for an hour or two, and I believe that your pH balance and there's all this other kind of scientifically, verified data that the ocean brings to you physically, and then you go, well, then if it's having that effect physically and you can measure it, then it's having some, emotional and spiritual effects on you.
Yeah, and it just seems like the way you describe it, I mean, for somebody else, I know my wife feels that way in the mountains. I'm a water guy, she's a mountain guy, but there's just so many of us out there that are ignoring that. We just like, well, it's not going to get me more money, or it's not going to get me laid or whatever, and we've really got to pay attention to that stuff. Again, it comes back to giving ourselves permission to go for what really makes us feel whole. That's what I'm getting from that.
Well, it's what's interesting. It's a little bit like our fear of the sun. We fear the sun, and I was listening to this guy talk about how we're the first culture in the history of the world that fears the sun. Every other culture has always worshipped the sun, and that we're from the sun, and that the sun, without the sun, none of us are here, and the earth's charged with the sun, and the sun, and we hide from it and think it's making us sick. And meanwhile, the only disease is that when you're not you only get diseases from not being in the sun, not from being in the sun. And so, in a way, it's like the sun is, is so important, and the light of it is so important on our psyche. And then, the depression that happens in all the places that don't get enough sunlight. I mean, so we're connected to this, the earth in a way that we don't even understand. We can't even begin to measure it. We just need to know one thing: we're connected to it, and so we need to cultivate that. And what's interesting is, people are always looking, like, okay, I'm not getting something from this, but you're getting this intangible thing that you can't measure. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how much money you have. You can't buy your health. I mean, you see these wealthy people and they're spending their money at the hospital, but at the end, it's too late. You needed to do it along the way, and you need to cultivate it along the way. And, at the end of the day, you got to live right now, because who knows what tomorrow will bring. And if you sit around working to get a big pile of money to retire, that's never going to happen, because at the end of the day, we're not designed to do nothing. So you might as well kind of enjoy the ride along the way, and you don't know when it's going to happen. You might save up to die and then give it to your kids and mess them all up. That'll be great. It's like at the end of the day, you got to kind of live, you got to live for the moment. Doesn't mean be foolhardy and don't, save up and be smart about certain things. But sure, at the same time, you only have right now. You only got today. And then, when tomorrow comes, then you'll have tomorrow, but it's not till then. And so I think that's another part of, really enjoying, and like you said, your wife loves the mountains, you love the sea, but at the end of the day, it's all part of the one thing that we're all connected to, which is the planet. We're all part of the earth. We're from the earth. The earth is from us. We're all, it's a relationship that you have to cultivate. And it's unbelievably interesting how the environment, it's so good for us to be, why do people want to go into parks, and why do they go hiking in nature, and why do we seek it out to go and be in it? Because it brings us something that we need, and we don't even know how to measure it. We just know after or before, hey, I need that. And we go, and fortunately, people that are already doing it on a regular basis, they have the system. They've already cultivated the relationship. The problem is that if you wait long enough before you start, you still don't think it has an effect. But as soon as you start doing it, you're like, what was I doing all this time? And I think that's one thing that, when hurricanes and other kind of monumental environmental, consequences that happen, I think people need to, that's just like a reminder of, hey, we're on a planet that's, spinning at like whatever, 1,300 miles an hour, traveling at 24,000 miles an hour through space. I mean, this is, we need to be realistic about where we are really, and not just think that the air is controlled by the air conditioning,
Right. Absolutely. Well, I just keep coming back to, like, don't wait to do what you love. Figure out what you do to love, even what you love to do, even if it doesn't have this like tangible thing. Feel it. You're gonna have an experience from it. Come back to what's the experience you have doing it. What if you oriented your life around what makes you feel excited, has you aroused in life, has you feel whole, and just give yourself permission to go for that. That's what I keep pulling away from this interview, man.
Well, it would be a better planet at the end of the day. And then, I have a friend of ours that's a judge in the South, a woman judge, and she always says, "Invest in experiences" is her line. And I have to quote her because you know what? That's right. Because at the end of the day, all this monetary stuff, you ain't bringing it with you, but experiences, you might. If there's anything you could take with you when you do leave, you might be able to take the experiences you have. And one thing's for sure, you definitely get to carry them around with you every day. You get to carry these experiences around with you, and they shape you and mold you. And I just see it through my kids. They always remember. They don't remember what they got, but they always remember what they did.
Beautiful. I love it. Laird, thank you so much for taking the time to talk today. This has been an awesome interview. We went way over. You've been very generous with your time.
My pleasure.
It's been a lot of fun. Thank you again.
Aloha,
buddy.
Take care.
Laird and his wife, Gabby, have a great website full of useful info. Take a minute to check out all of the cool free workouts, recipes, and nutritional articles at gabbyandlaird.com. There's so much more to The New Man than these interviews, so visit thenewmanpodcast.com and join the mailing list so you never miss another update. Thanks for listening.